This is the moment we waited for. Everything you want is right here. We gon' give them what they came for. We gon' take it up from last year. Shoot on my shot, boy, I'm long range. Me and the team on the same thing. Stayed down, never switched up. Only thing changed was the game. I'm in the zone now. Nothing can change what we on now. When I pull up, know it's going down. Foot on the gas, ain't no slowing down. Aiming for greatness, no settling. Kick down the doors, they won't let me in. Taking no else, yeah, I gotta win. Watch me kick down the doors, they won't let me in. Who running the game now? Foot on the gas, can slow down. No, my team, we holding it down. We know we running it now. Watch the game change. Watch the game change. Watch the game change. Watch the game change.
Welcome to another edition of the It's Cavalier podcast. It's your boy Mac, and tonight our Cleveland Cavaliers took on the young and developing Brooklyn Nets, a feisty team of youngsters led by former Cavalier player development coach Jordi Fernandez, a name that we're probably all familiar with, and he looks to be doing a wonderful job with this Nets team, right? And he's got his hands full with all these young prospects over there. They had five first-round picks this past offseason, and it's a tall order taking on a contender such as the Cavaliers, a team that people, even coming off that loss to New York, still think is going to finish as the number one seeded team in the Eastern Conference. Still, though, those are NBA players, pros, a mixture of vets and rookies alike. So that meant take them seriously. We've seen that story play out time and time again. You either come to play or leave the building with an L. We already know the Cavaliers were on the road in Barclays Center. That is not some place that you want to walk out with. And I mean, listen, you already lost to the Knicks, right? In New York, in the Garden. You didn't want to leave the state of New York without at least one victory. And they got that tonight in a tightly contested victory over the Brooklyn Nets in a game that honestly couldn't and shouldn't have gotten to that point. But listen, like I just said, you have to respect your opponent. Those are pros on the other sidelines. And one of the things that I saw on social media running rampant was the fact that this is a lottery bound team. Listen, there are pros over there. There's at least one champion over there in the likes of Michael Porter Jr., a guy who can absolutely still put up points. And he did that tonight. 31 points from Michael Porter Jr. on 22 shot attempts. He hit 13 of those, 59.1%. He went 5 of 10 from three-point distance. I say all that to say that just because the team is probably going to finish in lottery territory, that does not mean that you should take them any less seriously. And listen, there were some issues that crept up in that second half. The first half was beautiful. It was a masterclass in terms of ball movement out there. It just looked phenomenal, and it was to be expected against such a young Brooklyn team trying to incorporate all these young pieces. But the Cavaliers got really, really sloppy in the second half. That said, they were still able to come up with the victory, the first of the season for the Cleveland Cavaliers. So I'm happy about that, but I'm not so happy about the way that the game started to wind down the stretch. There was a lot of things that happened tonight, a lot good, some bad, but I'm going to take the win any way I can get them because I look at some of the personal developments here, the individual developments, and they were fantastic. I have to start with the player that many people were kind of rolling their eyes at in terms of the contract that was handed out, and that was Sam Merrill. Sam Merrill, this dude was out there cooking, man. Money Merrill was absolutely cooking to 22 points. He doled out 5 assists. This dude was throwing dimes out there. And we're talking about Lonzo, and doing what he does. And make no mistake, Lonzo doled out 8 assists tonight as he led the Cavaliers in that category. But Sam Merrill was one of 5 different Cavaliers who have at least 4 assists tonight. And he was throwing some true dimes. Some of them he probably could have had more if they didn't end up resulting in free throws, like one of them that he had to, I think it was Jarrett Allen out there, which was beautiful. But aside from that, this is yet another game where Sam drills at least 5 triples. This motherfucker has 11 threes in less than 2 games. I'm telling you, man, I am sitting here telling you guys, this is a player who is going to experience a career year. I said it on the film breakdown. I said it in my predictions. I think that this dude is going to have what it takes to have a breakout season this year. He's going to have Lonzo Ball beside him for hopefully all season long, especially once he slides to the bench. He's going to have Max Strus out there beside him, and he's going to have Larry Nance Jr., all of these different connective passers. And that's without even mentioning Craig Porter Jr., Tyrese Proctor, some of these guys who can move the rock. This dude is just a sniper out there. 11 triples in 2 games. That's the Sam Merrill that the Cavaliers were hoping to get. And he was a demon at times on defense, although the second half left a lot to be desired. I think he's been worth every single dollar that they have paid him. And I could not be happier with the return so far. I just hope that he keeps it up. And I think that he will, as long as you don't overplay him at the 3. And this is the thing, right? This is what I've been trying to tell people all offseason. As long as Sam Merrill is not overplayed at the small forward position, an area where he played a lot of minutes last year, because we know that Kenny Atkinson loves himself some Sammy Merrill. He loves himself some Money Merrill out there, and he couldn't help but suit up for 73 fucking minutes, or 73% of his minutes at the 3 last year. Now, this year, through 1 game, right, he came into tonight playing 70% of his minutes at the 2 and only 28% at the 3. And I would be willing to bet you dollars to donuts that it is probably that same type of breakdown tonight too, once these stats roll over and Cleaning the Glass has updated them. And that is exactly the direction that you want to go in for Merrill, because you don't, at 6'4", 6'5" on a good day, you don't want to overextend him at the 3, even though that the advanced statistics and the raw numbers and data tell you that he can function there very well. You just don't want him there too much. And when Max Strus comes back, it's going to get even better, man. I cannot wait to see the continued progression of what Merrill brings to the table, because he was doing it all out there tonight on both ends of the floor. So I absolutely love to see what he was bringing to the table out there. Another player that there's no way of skirting around it, played against his former team after it was reported that a lot of the team, was really not happy with his performance in game 1. He had a strong talking to and film session from Kenny Atkinson. And I'm pretty sure Kenny Atkinson probably yelled at him, got in his ear a little bit. And that, as you could assume, my friends, was Jarrett Allen, who had a phenomenal night himself. Really, really big bounce back game from the big man that we so lovingly call the Fro, right? J.A. would finish with 22 points, 6 rebounds. We'll talk about that in a minute. 4 assists, 2 steals, a block, and was a very efficient 8 of 11 from the field, including 6 of 9 from the charity stripe. His efficiency was always nice to see last season, and it is carried over to this season when he's actually gotten those opportunities. Now, obviously, the one thing that sticks out is the rebounds. Again, I don't know what it is about this Cavaliers team to begin the season, but it just feels like the effort on the glass at times, the positioning on the glass at times is not up to par. It's not where you want it to be at. I think it will improve as time goes on. And it's not everybody, right? Because I've seen Lonzo Ball, I've seen Larry Nance Jr., I've seen a number of other players go up and sky for rebounds in an attempt to pull them down, right? Even Jalen Tyson, 4 rebounds. We already know he's one of the better rebounding forwards on the roster. It's got to be better. I think that New York took advantage of this. Brooklyn kind of did in the second half. It's not what you want to see out of this team, as nobody cleared double digits tonight in terms of rebounds. The team would finish with 51 overall. I don't even think that's an accurate number. That is what NBA.com is telling me right now. But Nick Claxton managed to pull down 9. Michael Porter Jr. pulled down 8. You had Igor Dinman pull down 6 himself, the rookie Clowney with 5. You want to see the Cavaliers get better on the glass. There cannot be continuation of this going forward. The Cavaliers have to do a better job of boxing out and keeping these guys off the glass, or things are going to be kind of rough. Now, obviously, when you have a lot of efficiency, because the Cavaliers did shoot 53.7% from the field, which includes 42.9% from the 3-point line, you can understand that the chances for rebounds are not going to be as plentiful, right? 53.7%. You hit 18 triples tonight on 42 attempts. They had a 45-point quarter in the third, or the second or third. And it's one of those things where, yeah, the stats can be a little deceiving if you did not watch this game. But at the same time, I just think that you got to be able to get better positioning in there. And I think you saw that in New York, and you saw that again in the fourth quarter against this Brooklyn Nets team who absolutely stormed their way back. Is that all on Jarrett Allen? Absolutely not. But it was not necessarily the best performance from this team in that regard. I think that will get better as time goes on, or at least I hope so. But we got to figure this out before we face off against some of the Eastern Conference's better teams. And that's no slight against the Nets, who, very well coached, but still young and developing over there. They do have some veterans, as I mentioned, in Michael Porter Jr., Terrence Mann over there, Zaire Williams, I guess he counts as a veteran at this point, Cam Thomas, who was obviously another one of those guys like Porter who can put the ball in the basket, on his way to 33 points tonight on 23 attempts. This dude was letting it fly like a young Kobe out there. And we already know he's, after signing I think the qualifying offer there was a 1-year deal that he signed. He's probably setting himself up to be paid on a contender next year, or at least a better team than the Nets on a longer term deal. So I can't blame him for putting those shots up, because somebody has to score out there opposite Michael Porter Jr. I don't think the Nets are going to be a playoff team by any means, but they'll make things plenty interesting for teams that don't take them seriously. And the Cavaliers, whether it be a lull in that fourth quarter or simply just the efforts not being what you want it to be, it was definitely one of those games that was frustrating towards the latter stretches. That's all that I can say. Outside of those guys that I already mentioned, we got a big time performance from Spida, who would finish with 35 points, 2 rebounds, 5 assists. He would steal the ball 3 different times. He was 10 of 15 from the field, and 6 of 10 from the 3-point line. Always nice to see Spida do that. And guess what? He actually got to the free throw line tonight. 12 attempts, 75% from the charity stripe was Donovan Mitchell. So hopefully this continues to spark him along, as Don, even in that first game, we saw him turning on in that third quarter. And what ended up happening was that he just got going far too late in that game against New York. This was not the case. I feel like Donovan Mitchell went out there with something to prove, and he, ended up scoring 35 points, which is what we have come to expect of our franchise player. And hopefully this continues, and he's not overutilized out there from an offensive standpoint. And as Tom K537 says down here, Spida is our superhero. Yeah, I mean, he is one of these guys that we can nearly routinely count on to bring us home or to get us back into a game, right? Spida is fully capable of doing that. It's not sustainable 24/7, and you don't want to become overly reliant on Donovan Mitchell in that regard, but we know what he is capable of. Spida is a top 10 player in this NBA, and it is a joy to watch. He is one of the most aesthetically pleasing basketball players in the entire league when he is on and cooking. And even when he's not, he'll do 2-3 things during the course of a game. They're like, damn, what the fuck? Like, this guy is so talented, even when he's not on. And definitely awesome to see. One of the players that certainly had a bounce back game outside of Jarrett Allen is Craig Porter Jr., right? Craig was out there hooping. He suited up for 14 minutes and 25 seconds. And in those 14 minutes and 25 seconds, what did Craig do? He only went 14. All he did was go 6 and 7 from the field on his way to 14 points. And some of the plays that he was making out there, it was beautiful, right? The pull-up triples. And I think that's an area. And even when I had Larry on the other day, when I asked him about Craig and the improvements that he has made, or what he needs to do to get better, or what areas that he is focusing on, the number one thing that was said was that Craig Porter Jr. needed to continuously shoot the basketball. And that is what we want to see out of Craig, that confidence. And fresh off of that New York game where I felt like Tyrese Proctor outplayed him, he comes roaring back tonight and gives us a really, really good 15 minutes or so off this Cavalier bench, especially, and that's needed, right? When you have Lonzo, who's still not, his shot is still not right. We'll talk about him in a minute, but being able to have Craig out there when Lonzo is, his shot has not come back yet, and when Proctor, right, is a guy you're not putting a lot of pressure on because this is his rookie season. Although the Cavaliers believe in him, Craig is able to kind of balance things out, and it's kind of a tug and pull, right? It is a tug and pull with these bench guards, with Lonzo, with Craig, with Proctor. It'll eventually be that way with Strus and Sam, and on, right? And it's a luxury to have this type of depth at the guard, in the guard room, in that guard rotation. So it was nice to see Craig Porter Jr. in what surely amounts to be a make or break season for him, kind of ball out there. And that was a good showing from Sam and on both ends. And I think one of the things that you really wanted to see out of him was simply just being able to better your decision making, being able to make better decisions out there, moving the ball around, not just being stagnant out there. And when you actually have the opportunities, when you have the driving lanes, or when you're off the ball, making sure that you're cutting to the basket. And we saw that, right? He had a beautiful, one of his buckets came off of a beautiful cut to the basket where he does some really, really athletic shit, right? Up and under out there. And that's the type of stuff you want to see out of a Craig Porter Jr. when he is not directly on the ball. And I think that as time goes on, if he's able to replicate these types of things, even if he's not giving you 14 points, that's still a really, really good night from Craig. Now, I pointed out Lonzo, right? He was exactly, his plus minus reads 0. He did not knock down a single field goal tonight, but he did at the very least score 2 points in addition to 2 rebounds and 2 steals. But the real kicker here was the 8 assists. Now, he had some beautiful dimes out there. He had a whole, he threw the ball all the way down the court, hidden. I think it was Jarrett Allen, which those two have already connected on a couple already. There, he will do some shit out there with the ball and make some passes and put the ball in areas where this guy, where his own teammates can only get to, and it'll literally leave you at a loss for words, and you'll be astounded and wonder how the hell he fit the basketball into such a tight window. And that's the type of shit that Lonzo's been bringing to the table in the absence of his 3-point shot, right? And we even saw him drive to the basket. I said this on the last stream. Lonzo is not really a drive and kick type of player, but what he does do is break start, and you saw a lot of those tonight, and it's going to lead to a lot of assists. But when that is not happening, the one thing that I want to see from Lonzo, and not too frequently, mind you, I don't want to see it too frequently because I don't want him to get injured. I want his body to hold up. I don't want him to put himself in harm's way all that often. And maybe that sounds pretty weak, but I want this guy to stay healthy because we're in it for the long run. Lonzo, in that game against New York, did not drive the ball a ton. It's just not something that he has ever truly done, right? He only drove the ball, if I'm not mistaken, in that game 3 total times. And as soon as he entered the game, we actually saw him do that on a number of occasions. And even though it didn't often result in anything happening in terms of point production, it is still something that's nice to see because he put the ball on the floor and attacked the basket, and he attempted a layup, and it didn't happen. It didn't go in, but I love to see it. And as soon as this man's shot starts falling, I think that you're really going to be cooking with him. You just got to get him. And I want him to continue taking those shots. I don't want him to lose his confidence because this is a player, right, who had an upward trajectory in terms of that 3-point percentage for 3 straight seasons in New Orleans and for Chicago in that first season. And as long as he is able to get back to, I don't know, it doesn't have to be 40%. I could give a fuck about that with everything else he's bringing to the table. If he can get up to 37, 38% on 6 or 7 attempts, I'll set up for 4 or 5. With everything else that he's doing out there, I think that's perfectly fine for Lonzo because we don't need him to be a shot chucker out there. We don't need him to be a pull-up guy out there. We just need you to knock down the open 3-point shot, whether that be from above the break or the corners. And against New York, I had some nits to pick with him in regard to those transition pull-up triples, and we didn't really see that. And I think that as long as he's staying even killed, he doesn't get gun shy like we've seen from other players on this roster in years past, he's going to be fine, especially with the playmaking and defense that he brings to the table. And it should tell you a lot that in a game where he didn't score or knock down a single field goal, he was still able to finish even keeled at 0 in terms of the plus minus out there. It definitely could be worse. But man, the individual performances have been nice, right? In the absence of complete team game and some of these lackadaisical efforts, I think the individual performances have been wonderful to see, especially Sam. You've gotten some nice production out of Larry Nance Jr., who would finish with 9 points and 3 boards tonight, 4 of 8 from the field. Larry, man, this dude, he's going to be such a crucial addition, as assuming he stays healthy come the playoffs. And you got so many people out there, and even in that New York game, people are saying, well, why didn't Kenny Atkinson pull Jarrett Allen for Thomas Bryant? And listen, if you believe that, that's fine. I understand it. Jarrett Allen was terrible. He was horrific. He was horrible. He was ass in that in that first game. But I also believe that Larry and Evan are getting the bulk of those backup 5 minutes. And so with Thomas's inability to play anything more than the 5, that's always going to give Larry a leg up. It'll always give Dean a leg up. And Evan is, he's going to get his time there, especially if you want to maximize his minutes as a floor spacing big at the 5. Thomas is he's a nice addition, but it was, when you brought him in, it was never truly about him being a consistent every night player. It was about playable depth. And he will have games during the season where he gets a ton of minutes, especially on back-to-backs. He will have a game or two in this playoffs where he'll be called upon because of a matchup, and that's why you brought him in. But I think that sticking with Jarrett Allen, letting him know that, hey, we're in your corner. We know you wet the bed. We know you had a shitty-ass performance against the Knicks, but we still believe in you. That's the type of thing that gets you respect from your coach, or gets respect from your players if you are a coach. And I think that sticking with Jarrett Allen, because we saw him give a wonderful performance tonight on a team best 24, right? Plus 24. That was awesome. That was awesome to see from Jarrett out there. And I know it's just a net, so people in the comments, if you're watching live or you're listening to this after the fact, chill out. I get it's just the Nets, but those are pros on that side too. So no use going that route. Respect them. But overall, there are still things that this team has to work on as a unit, as a collective. And I think that comes with the territory. You're integrating new pieces. Guys are still not completely healthy. We haven't even mentioned the fact that DeAndre Jordan was ruled out. Well, not DeAndre Jordan, Jesus. Got DeAndre Jordan on the brain since he signed with, was it New Orleans today? DeAndre Hunter missed his second straight game with the knee contusion. And honestly, I'm fine with that. You're going to need him against Milwaukee. And I think that affording him the additional rest is probably more important than the second game of the season, when it's not necessarily a must-win situation, because you already are down Darius Garland. You're already down the likes of Max Strus for a couple of months. But play it safe with everybody else, right? With DeAndre Hunter, with Lonzo Ball, don't ride him too hard. And Lonzo, for the second straight game, in case anybody was wondering, he did go past that 20-minute limit. We were told this offseason, I'll repeat this one last time. You're probably not going to hear me say it too much more, because I understand that not everything is set in stone, and there's always a little bit of room for wiggle. Lonzo went past the 20-minute mark for the second straight game, as he played 22 minutes and 30 seconds tonight. And so you want to play these guys strategically, and you want to manage their minutes quite well. And I don't think anybody played more than Donovan Mitchell's 34 minutes and 52 seconds. Evan Mobley was a close second with 34 and 14. We'll talk about him in a minute. But yeah, you're managing these players. You don't want to put too much strain on their bodies. And I think they made mention of this during the Cavaliers broadcast. Brad Daugherty and John Michael, they looked sluggish. towards the end of that game, they looked kind of tired, and maybe that played into them being a little bit more lackadaisical in terms of the effort on the glass. But you got to work past that. I think that was what was said. I think there was a specific conversation they mentioned that Donovan Mitchell had with Evan Mobley, where he's like, "Oh man, it's time for you to take over," and Mitchell says, "No, you got to work past that." And that's exactly what needs to happen. When you're tired, you better figure that shit out, because the teams ain't gonna give a fuck if you're tired in the playoffs. They will take advantage of that. And that is exactly why the Cavaliers got their asses handed to them in multiple games during that Indiana series, because they just weren't ready for the physicality. They weren't ready for the pace. They weren't ready for the sheer speed that they were playing with. But yeah, they gotta shore up some things. But tonight was a step in the right direction. The ball movement was much better. They made a concerted effort to get Jarrett Allen involved a lot more early on. And I think we all love that. Is Jarrett, by the end of the first quarter, already had 6 points and 3 rebounds. And that may not sound crazy, but considering that he finished the last game against New York with 4 points and 4 rebounds in total, basically giving that to Cleveland in the first quarter tonight, that's a step in the right direction. A player that I thought did not give as consistently as we saw in that first game where he scored 20 plus was Evan Mobley. And I think that kind of boiled down to him being tired, maybe a little bit gassed out there. And the shot attempts, right? Didn't look as involved in the second half. And I think that was kind of because other guys were stepping up. You saw what Donovan Mitchell did. You saw what Sam Merrill continued to do tonight, scorching the twine. And you saw Craig Porter Jr. step up. But Evan, he was kind of noticeably absent, a little bit laboring out there in that second half, especially that fourth quarter. And some of that is to be expected at the start of the season, but you would think that they would, he would be in a little bit better shape. I don't want to say that. I want to say, no, let me walk that back a little bit, because I think he's in fine shape. But I do believe that you got to be able to have your legs under you. I think that New York game probably tired them out more than they'll probably let on. But tonight, I thought that Mobley was not nearly as impressive as he was against the Knicks, where he drilled 4 triples and didn't get enough touches in that second half of that game either. But I think that they got to continue to try and make Mobley more of a focal point of this offense. He only finished with 12 field goal attempts in this one. I think he had 19 18 or 19 against New York. You need more than that, as you want to see him use his size advantage, because that was a big thing tonight too, right? I get that players like Nick Claxton out there can provide somewhat of a resistance to the likes of Allen and Mobley, but they just didn't really have the size to deal with Allen or Mobley full time every single minute that they were out there. I think you have to continue to exploit matchups when you have them like that. And I think they did in the case of Allen, but Mobley wasn't nearly as impressive in that regard. He did some things out there that were still pretty cool. And he did deal out 5 assists. You saw some big to big passing tonight, which is always nice. And I think you're going to continue to see more of that, since you have such a connective passer in Larry Nance Jr. as your backup 4 or 5 out there. But you got to see more consistency out of Mobley in second halves of games. And I hope that's not something that continues to be a trend moving forward. I hope they're able to get a complete performance out of him from start to finish, from the first quarter through the fourth quarter. And we'll have to see how that ends up occurring, or we'll track the nature of that development as the season goes on. But got to get more out of Mobley. That is for certain. Somebody down here in the chat is asking, what did you think of Dean Wade's offensive game tonight? Listen, Dean is one of these guys where if the shot is falling, you genuinely have no complaints, because he's already a stellar wing defender out there. If the shot is not falling, in the case of tonight, he did not make but only one of his 6 triples attempted. You have to be able to add in other areas. And I did feel like Dean did. I think there are moments in time tonight where he missed, right? Some of these misses that he had that were kind of damning from 3-point line, but I'm not going to fault him too much, because he did add in other areas. He had a really nice offensive rebound out there tonight, which resulted in points and him getting to the line. He did finish with 6 points, 6 rebounds. He was just 2 of 7 from the field. But the thing that sticks out to me was the 3-point attempts, right? Coming off a game where he goes 3 of 3 from the 3-point line, you want to continue to see him pull the trigger with not reckless abandon, but with confidence. And 6 more attempts tonight is exactly what you want to see out of Dean. You don't want to see him get in his head. You want to see him continuing to showcase the confidence and pulling the trigger. And if you guys haven't checked it out yet, I did a film breakdown of the game against New York, and one of the players that I discussed was Dean Wade, and him taking advantage of the closeouts, right? And so that's probably the wrong way to word that. It's not necessarily that he was taking advantage of the closeouts. He was attacking them from the 3-point line. He wasn't putting the ball on the floor and driving inside. He was pulling up in defenders' faces. And that's what you want to see out of Dean, that unshakable confidence that you've seen out of players like Donovan Mitchell. You see out of players like Sam Merrill. It's exactly what you want to get out of Dean. And I get it, like when the shot's not falling, it's hard to see his true value because people, I don't know what it is, they just don't respect defense and the abilities on that end nearly as much as they do offense. But when the shot is not falling, you have to be able to do other things. And I thought that he did that tonight. So I thought it was a decent performance from D Wade. Not nearly as impressive as the first game, but there were some good takeaways too. So thank you for asking that question. That's definitely a good one. Chaz Erica says, Porter Jr. and Thomas will be a fun duo for Nets fans this year. Yeah, I think that in terms of like putting up points, because those two combined for 60 plus tonight. I want to say they combined for 64 total points, and they took a combined 45 shots, which is crazy, right? They took 20 triples between the two of them, making 8 of them. That's not bad at all. That they can definitely put points up, but neither are great defenders. And I think that's kind of always been the knock on each. And I know that no longer under the shadow, or in the shadow rather, of Nikola Jokic, no longer in the shadow of a Jamal Murray. Michael Porter Jr. is one of those guys that is finally going to get the opportunity to lead a team, at least in terms of field goal attempts. And I think he's damn determined to do that and to showcase that he can, help a young team learn some of the ropes at the NBA level. So we'll have to see. And Cam Thomas, yeah, we know this guy can score. He's done it for years against Cleveland. It is never a fun time when the Cavaliers play the Nets in terms of Cam Thomas, because Cam Thomas has just been absolutely fuego versus the Cavs. And I want to say that this man has routinely lit them up. Now, including tonight's game, Cam Thomas has now averaged 20.7 points, 3 rebounds, and 2.8 assists against the Cavaliers. And he has shot 47.4% from the field, including 39.6% from the 3-point line. So this is a dude who's always lit up the Cavaliers. And as Chaz Erica says down here, somebody has to take the shots. That's exactly what it boils down to in Brooklyn. Somebody's got to take them. Then Porter Jr. and Cam Thomas will do that. But we'll see what ends up happening over there in Brooklyn. I don't expect anything more than a lottery team, but they're sure to put on some fun basketball for the fans over there if you're a fan of all fans. But I think that's really most of what you can take away from this game. And then I'm trying to do something different this year where I'm not like too overreactive of individual games. And I hope you guys can forgive me, but I think that's what the point that we're at with this Cavaliers team, right? I know that I'm a big proponent of enjoy the journey. I will always admit to people, right? I watch every single game. I think every single game is important for different reasons, right? Whether you're trying to get a guy going or you're trying to develop these good habits, and on and on. But I think that if we take things and we boil them down to these conclusions after every single game, we're going to drive ourselves crazy. And we're not going to have fun with the season, because it would have been very easy for me to say, you know what, fuck it. Jarrett Allen sucks. He's ass. He's going to be terrible again in the playoffs against whoever the Cavaliers face after that singular performance. Guess what? that doesn't tell us anything. Just like tonight doesn't really tell us much either in terms of the longer term, right? We need to see these guys do it in the playoffs. And Jarrett Allen definitely fits the bill for that one. But that doesn't stop me from looking at some of the trends that we see from this team. And that will kind of be the give and take. We've seen the Cavaliers do so much over the years in terms of the regular season, but we want to use this early portion in the season to do the 3 E's. And I mentioned this on social earlier. The 3 E's. You want to evaluate. That is definitely something that you want to do on a game to game basis. You want to make sure that you're out there experimenting, which I think we've already seen Kenny Atkinson do that. And you want to ultimately evolve. The 3 E's. Remember that: experiment, evaluate, evolve. And I think that's where we are with this Cavaliers team. I think that Kenny Atkinson is going to mix around and play around with a lot of these lineups. He's going to see what works, what doesn't work. And when Darius and Strus and Hunter come back, he's going to do more of it, right? So what we're seeing right now is not necessarily what we're going to see in 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 weeks from now. It's just not going to be the same lineups. You're not going to get the same combinations. And I think that's what they're going to use the earlier portion of the season to do. And if that results in some losses, so be it, because I think it will only make the Cavaliers a better team come the postseason. You're doing all these little things along with trying to manage minutes, manage egos, manage injuries, load manage, whatever you want to call it. That is what we're likely to see most of the time in the early going this season. Joel D1 says, thoughts on Lonzo. Not sure if you caught it earlier, but Lonzo, to me, I know he didn't hit any shots tonight, but the fact that this man is out there attempting the shots matters to me, because I think he's trying to get back to that efficient shot making that he had from 3-point line. Listen, I'll say this. I'll be the first person to say this. Lonzo, if you take away the 3-point shots, Lonzo's never truly been an efficient player in terms of field goal percentage. But Lonzo has started to trend upward in the years prior to the injuries. He just has to get back to shooting the ball with confidence. And if you can get up to 37, 38% from deep on 4, 5, 6 attempts, I think you're good, because that comes in addition to the rebounding. He's one of the better rebounding guards in the NBA, probably the best rebounding guard on the roster that we have. In addition to the playmaking. And again, 8 assists tonight. He makes a lot of these passes and throws a lot of these dimes out there where you legitimately wonder and question, like, how the hell did this guy fit the basketball into this spot? How did he get it in this window? How is he seeing guys get open before they realize they're open? Right? It's that type of thing that makes Lonzo so damn valuable out there. And I don't think it's quantifiable all the time in terms of the stat sheet, but I'll tell you what, I'm going to be rooting for him. I think he'll get back into a rhythm. I think that these early games are certainly needed, and I know that he's not putting up the shot, the shot profiles that everybody's going to fall in love with, but I think we have to remain patient with Lonzo, because he's doing things that contribute to winning. He's got to get that shot falling, and I think that it will. We just got to remain patient with him. Gamble the Camel says, thoughts on the Bucks game on Sunday, key matchups, and what do you expect? That's a good question, right? What I expect is Evan and Giannis to have a duel. And I think that Evan is one of these players, one of the unique players in the NBA that is suited to match up with a player like Giannis. I think that you look at that Bucks starting lineup and it's a fucking doozy, right? It's one of those that kind of leaves you scratching your head, like, okay, like you can see where they're trying to go with it, right? They acquire Miles Turner to replace Brook Lopez, a better option, in my opinion. A younger option, right? Miles Turner's been in the league for years now. You got Giannis, obviously, Gary Trent Jr., and Ryan Rollins started tonight. AJ Green started tonight, who just signed that new deal, if I'm not mistaken. And you got Kyle Kuzma coming off the bench, Cole Anthony, Bobby Portis, Taurean Prince, all of these different guys. It's going to be a fun game, but I think that in terms of key matchups, you're really looking at the battle between Turner and Allen, as we know that was definitely one where in that Indiana series last year, Miles Turner got the better of Jarrett Allen. That cannot be the case for a Milwaukee Bucks team that already has Giannis out there that can give the Cavaliers problems in that front court. So if Miles Turner is out there torching the twine from three-point distance, and newsflash, he went 0 of 3 tonight from deep against the Toronto Raptors. If he comes in against Cleveland and starts knocking down that three-point shot and pulling Allen out of that painted area, giving Giannis more space to work with on his dribble drives, it could be an ugly game. And that's really where I'm at with key matchups, right? Miles Turner versus Jarrett Allen is probably going to be one of the more telling ones that people probably won't talk about as much, but Giannis and Mobley are going to take the headlines. I think that limiting their bench production is going to be something that's key, right? We know Bobby Portis can be a very, very, very valuable player against reserves. We know that Cole Anthony, right, kind of a wild card. I thought like Cole Anthony had a decent year last year for the Orlando Magic, if I'm not mistaken. But I think this is one of those things where you got to be able to limit the role players. And speaking of Cole, right, he put up 9.4 points, 3 rebounds, 2.9 assists for Orlando last year, and shot 35.3% from deep. So you want to be able to limit, in terms of that Bucks, you want to be able to limit the supporting cast. And I think as long as they can do that, they have a really good chance to walk out of that one with a W. But I think that is definitely going to be one that you're asking, praying, hoping that DeAndre Hunter is healthy enough to play in. And I think that's probably the plan, right? We'll have to see what Chris Fedor and some of the other talking heads and Cavs media folks have to say about that. But I think that's definitely going to be one that you're going to want to have DeAndre Hunter back for. But you better hope that Evan and Jarrett bring their big boy pants to play, because I don't worry about Donovan. Honestly, don't worry about Sam. Maybe that's crazy to say, but I don't worry about those guys. I do at times question the effort of Jarrett Allen. I do question the physicality of Evan Mobley at times. So as long as they bring their A games, I think that should be a fun matchup. And we'll have to see. MK Bush K says, thought it got tight. It was nice to see, though it got tight. It was nice to feel like Mitchell didn't need to go hero ball mode tonight. I think that's an accurate and apt description of tonight's performance. I think it could have gotten to that point. Made no mistake, that fourth quarter was atrocious. Brooklyn, they stormed their way back, and you got to give them credit. I know a lot of people are considering this team a lottery team at the end of the day, but Jordi Fernandez is legitimately a good coach, and he does have them playing hard. There are a lot of young pieces over there, and sometimes when you have those young, feisty prospects that are trying to make a name for themselves and establish themselves at the NBA level, you're not sure what you're going to get out of them. And we're talking about a Nets team that outscored Cleveland 38-23 in that fourth quarter, right? 15 point deficit. That is not necessarily something you want to see. And in terms of the turnovers, because I feel like the Cavaliers really, really got sloppy in that second half. They turned the ball over 17 times tonight to Brooklyn's 19. And yeah, they did force a lot of Brooklyn turnovers, especially in that first quarter, because they forced 9 Brooklyn turnovers in the first quarter alone. But I don't know what the fuck happened in that fourth quarter. It felt like they couldn't miss. It felt like Brooklyn was knocking down every swing shot, every momentum push that they needed. Every momentum triple went in, and it was really, really it was one of those things that was frustrating to watch play out, but you had to respect it in real time, because they weren't just going to lie down and give the Cavaliers a W. And I think those are the types of performances that can become eye openers to the rest of the league. They're ones that you have to always have in the back of your mind, like, Brooklyn is not a team that's just going to be an easy L. And there was a great Anthony Edwards quote that came out, I think today or yesterday, where he's talking about the Portland Trailblazers. He's like, you got to take them seriously, essentially, right? I don't know what the exact quote was, but it was something along those lines, right? They're not an easy W anymore. And I think that Brooklyn, they're going to cause some issues this year. They're going to play spoiler at times for playoff teams. And that might sound crazy to say, but I honestly believe that to be the case. They'll have some games this year where they win unexpectedly over a favored opponent. But more often than not, they're going to play the role of spoiler. So we'll have to see how things play out. But I'm very, very interested to see how the Cavaliers carry this first win into this game on Sunday against these Milwaukee Bucks. But I think that's about all that I have to say about this one. Thank you guys for joining. Make sure you hit that like button, share, subscribe, all that good stuff. If you want to be added to this It's Cavalier Discord chat, you know what to do. Leave a rating, leave a review, send a screenshot. I sent a review to It's Cavalier53@gmail.com and send that, and I'll send you that information right away. If you want to support the pod any small but helpful way, consider becoming a member over on Patreon or YouTube. You guys can do that for as little as $1 a month. That's less than people pay for coffee these days. But even if you don't, I'll still be here making the content because I love the Cavaliers and I know y'all do too. Go Cavs.